You ever think you know exactly how your life works, got every piece neatly in place, only for one moment one sound toe knocked the whole thing down like a house of cards? That was me, that day, standing in the doorway of my own daughter's room, frozen, my hand still on the doorframe like I needed it to hold myself up. Sophie, 6 years old, blonde hair all over the place, was sitting at the piano, singing in this impossibly pure voice, in perfect French. And right beside her, Ruby, the nanny I'd brought into this house just 2 months earlier when I'd run out of other options, was playing along like it was the most natural thing in the world. The thing is, Sophie hadn't spoken a single word to anyone in over 2 years. Selective mutism, they called it. I'd spent fortunes on therapists, flown in specialists from Boston and LA, had entire weeks blocked off for evaluations, all of them telling me the same thing: she might never speak again. And now here she was, singing like a Parisian opera star. What the hell is going on here? I said, sharper than I intended, but I couldn't help it. The music stopped instantly, like someone had cut the power. Sophie's big blue eyes went wide, and she slid off the bench, half hiding behind Ruby. Ruby stood, slow, calm, her hand brushing Sophie's hair back like she wasn't about to get torn apart by her employer. "Mr. Callahan, I can explain." "Explain," I repeated, stepping inside, my voice already rising. "Explain how my daughter suddenly talks for you when every top specialist in New York failed." Ruby didn't back down. She put a protective hand on Sophie's shoulder and said, "She's always been able to talk, sir. She just chooses who and when." I actually laughed, one of those short, bitter laughs that's more insult than humor. "She's 6. She's practically mute. This isn't about choice." But Ruby didn't blink. "I didn't cure her," she said. "I listened to her." And then Sophia's silent little girl stepped out from behind her and said, with this clarity that made my chest tighten, "I talk. I just don't talk to people who don't want to listen to me." You ever have a moment so still, so sharp, that it feels like someone just hit pause on your life? That was it. Ruby smiled faintly, proud of her, while I just stood there, feeling something shift in my gut. But pride wasn't going to win out over the part of me that hated losing control. "You're fired," I said, because it was easier than admitting I might have been wrong. Sophie screamed, clinging to Ruby's dress like it was the last solid thing in her world. "No, she's the only one who understands me." But I'd already called Carmen, the housekeeper, to take her upstairs. Sophie's little voice yelling, "Don't leave me," followed them down the hall until it ended with the sharp click of a lock. Ruby just stood there, calm, but her eyes said something I couldn't read, something that made me think maybe she knew more than I realized. 3 days later, I had the new nanny. Margaret Foster, 60, British, the kind of person who carried authority like an accessory. Impeccable references, absolutely discreet, exactly the kind of professional who wouldn't challenge me. But Sophie hadn't spoken since Ruby left. Barely ate. Wouldn't leave her room. Carmen told me she'd started making those humming noises again when she got upset, the ones the therapists called self-soothing behaviors. I brushed it off. "She'll adjust." Then the phone rang. "Mr. Callahan," the voice said, smooth and deliberate. "David Morales, Morales and Jameson. I represent Ruby Allen." I gripped the receiver tighter. "She's prepared a detailed file documenting not only your daughter's abilities, but instances of emotional neglect. I think we should talk before this becomes public." I tried to cut him off, threaten him, but something in his voice told me he wasn't bluffing. And he wasn't. Ruby wasn't just a nannish graduated with honors in child psychology, spoke 4 languages, specialized in trauma recovery. And she'd been recording her time with Sophie's permission. Hours of my daughter telling stories, explaining feelings, singing, showing skills I'd never even imagined she had. It snowballed fast. Dr. Sarah Chun, one of the top child development experts in the country, reviewed the material. At the first meeting, they played a clip of Sophie singing an opera in Italian, then discussing the meaning of the lyrics with Ruby like she'd been doing it for years. Then came the one that gutted me, Sophie saying, "Dad talks about me like I'm not here. I pretend to be worse than I am so he'll notice me." I tried to defend myself, brought up the doctors, the tests, but David cut in. "You paid for the version of the truth you wanted. Ruby found the one you refused to look at." I could feel the room closing in, the ground shifting under me. In the end, the court didn't take Sophie away, but they ordered counseling for me. Sophie was placed in a gifted program at Columbia, with Ruby as her educational tutor. I told myself I hated her for it, but deep down I knew she'd done what I hadn't. 6 months later, Sophie stood on a stage at Columbia, receiving a medal for academic excellence. Fluent in 5 languages, composer of 3 original piano pieces. She came down the steps, grinning, and whispered, "Are you proud of me now?" And IME, the guy who used to avoid even looking at her in public, pulled her into my arms and told her the truth. "I've always been proud of you. I just had to learn to see it." Ruby was in the crowd, arms crossed, watching us with that small smile, not smug, not gloating, just knowing. She hadn't destroyed me. She'd saved me from myself. And I keep thinking if she hadn't pushed, hadn't forced me to face it, I might have gone Sophie's whole life without ever really knowing her. So tell me, was Ruby right to do what she did? Did she cross a line? Or was she the only one in that whole mess who actually put Sophie first? I've heard every opinion out there, but I want yours because I'm still figuring out how to live with mine.